You're listening to Slightly Sauced.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 12? 13? Christ, what episode is this? I think it's 213?
213.
213 of Slightly Sauced. See, we got it eventually. It's all good. My name is John.
Sure is. I'm Tyler. Yep, keep it going.
I'm Jake.
Jesus, guys.
I'm Kayla, and this is really awkward when we don't practice.
What do you mean don't practice? We've done this 213 times.
And how many of them have we fucked it up when we're not in the same room together?
I mean, yeah, it's true, but still, don't you like recording from home? Isn't it easier than having to come all the way to my house and sit down?
Yes.
Plus, I don't have shit set up anymore, so... Anyway, welcome to the episode. Tyler, what's our brand new segment?
Brand new segment is, what the hell did I just eat?
Oh.
I like this.
Yeah. So last week I was overseas for a quick business trip, and I went out to this one restaurant, and the whole shtick of this restaurant is that they send their chefs to Michelin star restaurants around the world to learn, you know, their most famous dish or whatever.
Okay.
And then bring that back and give a local twist on that dish.
Oh, what a cool idea. And do they say, like, where the dish is from, like, geographically speaking, a restaurant and whatever?
Oh, yeah. And the chef and how the chef likes to do it and how they're
That's
different
so cool.
and all that stuff.
What a good idea.
Yeah, they've got like a whole wall of all the different restaurants that they've taken inspiration from.
And I assume that they kind of mix this up every once in a while. Like, it's not the same dish for 6 months or whatever. Like, if you went regularly, you'd get a bunch of these or something.
Oh, they don't. Their menu doesn't have anything listed. It's different every day.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's one of those fancy restaurants.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So this one was a 5-course meal, where like a given course, for example, the starter course was like 3 different small dishes.
Oh.
Each of the courses is paired with wine. But the reason I'm telling this long-winded story is one of the dishes. It was like I guess it was a starter sort of, but it was a little mini freezy or ice pop, whatever your local terminology for that is.
Okay.
And it was
Don't
made
be semen.
from,
Don't be semen. Don't be semen.
It was made from some sort of like forest weed or bush or shrubbery.
Okay, a shrubbery freezy.
Yeah, it was different. It literally tasted like forest smells.
It tasted like the forest smells, like the sort of earthy part of the forest that's kind of part rotting and part sweet.
But also that like moist mossy bit.
Oh, Jesus.
It was just
I don't think I want that
strange.
in my mouth. That doesn't sound good at all.
It was one of those things that's like, this is so weird and so wrong, but not bad enough that I'm not going to finish it. No, it was actually, the whole meal was amazing, except for that one bit of oddity. But
I don't think I've ever had a proper multi-course meal. Like, I've been to events where they serve a bunch of courses, but they're decidedly like lower scale events. Like, I've never been to this is how we eat here. There are 5 courses and there are, wines with every course, and you will cleanse your palate between courses. That's some fancy shit. I would love to try it because I love to eat and I love to be adventurous when I eat, but I've never gotten the chance. One of these days, I think I'm going to spend a whole lot of money to eat at a 5-star restaurant. Like, I'm just going to, it's one of those things where I think it was Dana told me this, that he and MC went to a restaurant when they were in New York, and it was like a 5-star Michelin or a 4-star Michelin restaurant. And they sat down and they ate, and the deal was, we're just not looking at the bill. It's just not even going to be a thing. We're just going to enjoy the meal. And I think that sounds like a blast. So the next time that Steph and I find ourselves in a place like Manhattan or London, I think we'd like to try and do that.
yeah, why not? Not going to be there every day, right?
So my what the hell did I just eat actually happened a couple of years back. I took Steph to a restaurant in town on Valentine's Day. It was what's that one called that's downtown Kitchener? The one that used to be the 41. Shit, I forget what it's called now. Anyway, they had a prefix menu, so like a Valentine's menu, and you reserved your seats for Valentine's Day before seeing the menu, so we didn't know what was on. And like I previously mentioned, I like to eat adventurously. I enjoy trying new things, but I had this starter, and it was like the most fucking hipster nonsense. Like, it was, I think it was salmon roe with like a sea foam, like literally a foam, like picture whipped cream, but not creamy, like a foam, like your shampoo makes when you shampoo your hair, and then like some kind of, I don't know, seaweed situation, and I couldn't finish it. I like fish, I like seafood, I like salmon, but the roe were absolutely disgusting. They were like little eyeballs that popped fish juice in your mouth, and it was just, they were bright red like berries, and you ate them, and it was just like, wow, there's fish in my mouth. It was awful. It was really bad. And to top it all off, like, I didn't really dig my main either. Like, it was fine, but it was also a really expensive meal, and we were really negative about it, and we haven't been back to the restaurant yet. It was not a good time.
I took this segment way too literally, so I'm going to tell you what the hell I just ate.
What'd you just eat?
I came home from the gym, and on our counter, we have a tub of buttermints. They're called Naylor's
What is a
Buttermints.
buttermint?
So I don't know.
Is it like
I'm
a
assuming
Werther's?
a fuck ton of sugar.
Okay.
And it's got this like really creamy, so it's not a hard candy, but it's not a soft candy. And it's just creamy. So when you bite into it, it gives away, but it melts almost. I can't describe
Like
it, but
a
I will bring you
soft
one day.
Inside thing? Not like a salt
It's not hard
toffee.
on the outside. Nope, I can't even begin to describe it to you.
Okay.
But they're called buttermints, and I only
what do
have
they
them because
taste
my
like?
dad
Do they taste like butter or mint?
sweet and butter, both. It's like sweet and creamy and
kinda like a
minty
Werther's,
all at the
or-
same time,
No, that's not right.
but not hard
But
at
not
all.
hard. Oh, wow. This
No.
sounds really strange. What the
So-
hell did you just eat? Ugh.
I came across them while my father and I were at the fine dining establishment of the Cracker Barrel. Yes.
An American
And-
classic.
Yeah, my father insisted we eat there. He was really, really excited about it.
Man, from
really
any time
wanted
I've
pork
spent
chops.
driving in the States, there are more Cracker Barrels than there are McDonald's. Like, all along the interstate, it's just Cracker Barrel and whatever that pancake, Waffle House, not Pancake House, Waffle House is.
IHOP.
No, there are IHOPs too, but it's specifically along the interstate. It's entirely Cracker Barrel and Waffle House, and there's tons of them everywhere.
Yeah, Waffle House is actually a real thing. They use it in disaster indexes. Apparently, they're one of the restaurants that stays open the longest during disasters. Yeah.
That's good to know.
No, but like they have contingency plans for we don't have any running water, so the manager knows where to get cases of water so that they can make coffee.
Shit. That's pretty cool.
I don't think I would want to work there. Like, if everyone else is getting out of town and the water stops running, I don't want to work there. I
They're
don't want to keep working.
They're 24 hours, right? Like, they're aimed at people who are traveling and truckers and stuff.
Yeah,
right?
it's similar to like a Denny's or something like that.
So yeah, buttermints. Check them out.
Like, seriously? Or because it sounds like you're pretty nonplussed with them.
No, I love the
Oh, you
buttermints.
like them?
I
Oh,
sought them
okay.
out. I think
All
they
right.
are phenomenal. They are a fantastic once in a while candy. But they come in a tub. I've never had a candy that comes in a tub that's quite like that. It's awesome.
Jake, what the hell did you just eat?
I don't know. My eating has been pretty boring lately.
Have you been eating healthy?
No.
No? Okay. Because sometimes when I make an effort to eat healthy, like if it's salad or something, I'm like, this sucks. Fuck this. I want bacon.
Well, my problem is I'll get to a point during my workday where it's like, okay, I need to actually put something in my face or otherwise I won't be productive at all this afternoon. And it's just been, for the past couple of weeks, it's like, well, I'm going to go get a sub, or, well, I'm going to go over to, there's a new Dairy Queen by our office. So they've got like this $6 special where you get a bacon cheeseburger, fries, a drink, and a small sundae.
Isn't that incredible? My brother and I went through the drive-thru a while back when I was helping him move, and I don't think I'd ever actually had food at a Dairy Queen before, but like for $6, the amount of shit you get, and the burger was fucking good. And I had like the onion rings were
not
pretty
bad
good
at
too.
all.
Like it was fine fast food. There was nothing wrong with it, and it's cheap.
Yeah, you got to go for the specials though. So they have $5 and $6 specials, and there's one with like chicken strips and such. But yeah, so that's my recent adventure. Just being boring.
Just being born. So what are we talking about tonight? Anyone got a good article to share?
So I recently went on a vacation to Cleveland, Ohio, and other surrounding.
Ohio. Is that the?
Nope,
No.
nope. It's Cleveland Rocks, but nice try.
Shit. I never really watched that 70s show, to be honest with you.
That's not even the right show.
Oh, Christ,
no.
I'm way off. What show is that?
No.
That was the Drew Carey show.
Oh,
Carey.
God damn it. I never really watched that show either.
That's okay.
I'm the worst.
Let's try again. I went to Cleveland
Sure.
and the surrounding area because that's where my family's from.
All right.
And while we were there, there's this teeny tiny museum situated in a regional airport called the International Women in Air and Space Museum.
Oh, that's
And it
interesting.
is completely free. It is just throughout the entire concourse of this teeny tiny little airport where they have information set up about women who are in aeronautics and also space travel. So
like
they've got
I can
pilots, they've
name
got astronauts, they've got...
Like, there's Amelia Earhart, there's Roberta Bondar, and there's whoever is the governor general right now, and I forget her name.
Julie Payette.
There you go. Those are like the 3 women in aeronautics that I can name.
So I'm going to tell you about Sally Ride.
All right.
Because I found this to be the most fascinating thing. And it actually came out of a discussion that I had with colleagues when I got back, when I was telling them about the Air and Space Museum. And we had this discussion about how does menstruation work in space.
Oh.
And it turns out
I've never thought about that. That actually sounds like that's difficult.
So this is like a highly researched and written upon topic.
I should imagine they researched it before they let the first woman go to space, wouldn't you think? That seems like...
So one way that they looked to manage it was using a continuous birth control pill cycle. So you take hormonal birth control to inhibit you from menstruating.
That's what happens if you get that shot too, right? It inhibits your period for so long?
Yep. But interestingly enough, Sally Ride was the first American woman in space.
Okay.
And so with this, NASA had to figure out for a 7-day space travel how many tampons Sally might need. And I would like you all to think about a number and tell me what you think NASA thought was an appropriate amount of tampons for a 7-day
so first of
space
all,
expedition.
couldn't they
Well, with
just asked her?
contingency, they're probably like up in the hundreds.
Okay, so here's... Yeah, all right. Let's play the game. Okay, I've got a number in mind.
Okay. So 7-day space travel.
Yeah.
We're not taking into account whether or not Sally is actually going to be menstruating during these 7 days.
Okay.
But NASA, let's throw some ideas out there. How many tampons
so
for
I'm
1
gonna
week?
I am going to guess that NASA probably went with 42. And the reason I'm guessing 42 is because I'm thinking there's 7 days. Conservatively, now I'll be honest with you, I have no fucking clue, but I'm going to go with 3 tampons a day, and I'm going to say NASA doubled it because of contingency. That said, I want to say that NASA should have just fucking asked her. Like, this doesn't have to be complicated.
All right.
And then
other
ask
guesses?
her and then double it, right? Like, take your average and double it. That seems reasonable.
Other guesses?
I think John's about in the right range there as to what NASA would guess. I think the thing to remember, though, is that obviously they're going to be very conscious about how much weight is on the particular spaceship.
Yeah.
So, like, sending a single tampon up might actually cost hundreds of dollars.
Yeah, you don't want to do pads. You want to do those insertables. I don't know what the names of things are.
Tampons
Oh,
are the
right.
ones that go inside of you.
Okay. Well, then NASA had the right idea, because Jake's right. Reducing weight is key.
But yeah, no, I'm gonna guess that they were in like the 50 range or something like
And
that.
you don't want the insertables with the big plastic fucking thing on them, because again, weight is a problem here. You want maximum efficiency.
Tyler?
I just want to know how much the space tampon costs to make.
It works upside down.
So, I'm
And
just
what
going
did the Russians do? Did the Russians just use a pencil?
I'm just going to read to you this section because it's the best part of this article. So this is from National Geographic.
All right.
Sally Ride's tampons may be the most discussed tampons in the world. Before Sally Ride became the first American woman in space, scientists pondered her tampons, weighed them, and NASA's professional sniffer smelled them. Better
sorry,
to
what
take
now?
deodorized than non-deodorized to make sure they wouldn't smell too strongly in a confined space
Oh, because you
capsule.
can't get rid of them. Oh, yeah,
Engineers
all right.
considered exactly how many she might need for a week in space. Is 100 the right number, they famously asked her? No, Ride said. That's not the right number.
Oh, is this actually a guessing game? Like, if they don't get it right, she's not going to give them the answer? Like, is that how we decide things for space?
They started at 100 and were promptly
their way
told,
down,
nope,
hopefully?
you're not right. That's not the right number.
This poor woman.
So the engineers were trying to be thoughtful, so they reportedly packed the tampons with their strings connected so they wouldn't float away.
Hey, you know what? That's not a terrible idea, unless she couldn't get the knot undone. And then you've just got, like, this mess of tampons that you can't get apart. That's a pain in the ass.
So what I found most fascinating about this is despite the brilliant minds at NASA, nobody thought to think, let's just let Sally plan her own tampon usage.
Well, but you can't, though. Like, to be fair, everything on a space flight is planned 6 times by 17 different people. Like, you just... You can't leave anything to chance is the problem, right? It's incredibly risky, and like Jake pointed out, weight is a problem and space is a problem. I mean, space is in physical space, not spaces and you're going to space. But like, these are all issues that have to be done by committees and delegates just because it's so complicated and there's so many things. But yeah, they should have at least asked her. Like, did she get to give some input?
I honestly don't know where that story ends or how many tampons.
Does it say how many they ended up taking?
Not in this article. So
oh, what a letdown.
I know. But interestingly enough, there were little interesting things like that all throughout the museum, specifically that NASA started training women to be astronauts because they are physically smaller than men and thus easier to transport.
Well, it makes absolute sense.
Yeah. But then they bailed on that program. It was really disappointing and my heart hurt going through that because they got all these women amped up and then they were like, yeah, no. We're not going to do women in space, but thanks for quitting your jobs. Anywho, if you are ever in Cleveland and have some time before the other fun things that you intend to do in Cleveland open, you can kind of bang off the USS Cod, the International Women in Air and Space Museum, as well as the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They are all on the same street within about 500 meters of one another.
That's a nice little street, isn't it? I did the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame when I was in Cleveland. That little pier that they're on is quite lovely. We took a bunch of pictures there. Yep. And there were a bunch of weddings happening on that little pier when we were there as well, because we were kind of in the middle of the summer, and there's like a little park on the edge of the water there. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was neat. Not like museum neat, but they had cool shit in it.
I could do a whole episode on just the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
You know what the thing at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that I saw that was really cool that I didn't think I would appreciate as being really cool was Michael Jackson's glitter glove. Because they had it on like a thing with a hand in it and it was spinning and there was light bouncing off it like a disco ball. Like it was neat. And I'm not really a Michael Jackson fan, but it was just cool that they had that. They had like Chuck D's jersey from the Public Enemy days. They had all kinds of cool shit. Like it's a neat spot, especially if you're a music geek. Shout out
to Cleveland.
Yeah. All right. So, you guys are familiar with the To Kill a Mockingbird, the Harper Lee book, right?
Hell yes.
Okay. And are you familiar with Go Set a Watchman, the book that was released a couple years back?
I pre-ordered it and then read it in one day.
Were you enthused with the experience? Were you
I knew what I was getting.
All right. And how did you feel about it? Was it good?
Well, before answering that, can you explain what the second book is?
Sorry.
I've never heard of it.
Okay.
I've heard of, obviously, To Kill a Mockingbird, but not the second.
No, that's okay. So Harper Lee wrote To Kill a Mockingbird back in 1960-something or other. I think it was 1960, actually. And she never published a second book. It's like a one-hit wonder, and it became an American classic. And she purposely didn't publish another book. It's not that she couldn't write anything else. She that was what she had to say, and she was done. She's currently 89, and she's living in a nursing home, and she no longer controls her estate. Her sister Alice was controlling her estate in her stead because she's in a nursing home and presumably not of all of her faculties. But Alice passed away about a couple years ago, something like that. And a new protector was named, a woman named Tanya Carter, who had worked in Alice Lee's law office. So this is a previous employer of Harper Lee's sister was now looking after the estate. And this Tanya Carter was the person who brought the new book, Go Set a Watchman, to HarperCollins, the publisher. And there was a whole bunch of questions.
So sorry, this new book was
It's a manuscript.
It's a
it
manuscript.
was written by Harper Lee, though?
When Harper Lee started writing the original book, when she started writing it, she wanted to write it as a series of flashbacks. And her publisher told her, nah, we don't want that. Just write it from the kid's perspective. And so she did. And she set aside all of the other work that she had done, which then was turned into Go Set a Watchman.
Right, so this was arguably the first draft of To Kill a Mockingbird. Although, having not read Go Set a Watchman, I'm not sure how close the two are, although there are similar characters. Atticus Finch is in it, is he not?
Yes, so it takes place when Scout is an adult and travels back to Mayberry to visit Atticus.
Right.
And so the way the book was meant to be set up was juxtaposing Scout as an adult post what happens in To Kill a Mockingbird set against what happens in To Kill a Mockingbird.
But there's a whole lot of controversy around the publishing of this Go Set a Watchman because Harper Lee never intended for it to be published. And the thought is that it's not even really a finished book. And also that this Tanya Carter claims that she found it in 2014 after Alice Lee, Harper Lee's surrogate, protector, whatever person, had died. But there's documented evidence that Tanya Carter participated in a 2011 meeting with Sotheby's, the auction house, in which this manuscript was discussed. And hence the claim is that they knew about this manuscript and purposely sat on it and waited until Alice Lee died so that they could publish it and exploit the fact that this thing existed and, make a whole bunch of money for the estate, which of course is now run by this person, really in a way that perhaps Harper Lee would not have wanted. That's the whole thing with Go Set a Watchman. Now, that's a prelude to a really interesting story that ran today in the BBC. Apparently, Terry Pratchett, you guys are familiar with Terry Pratchett, science fiction author, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
He died a little while back in 2015, and in his last will, he left instructions that his hard drive was to be crushed by a steamroller.
Cool.
Now, we can't know, I guess, if the motivation for this was the Go Set a Watchman debacle, but you have to imagine that it kind of fits together pretty neatly. But he said that, yep, when I die, my hard drive, which apparently has something like 10 unfinished novels on it, is to be crushed specifically by a steamroller. And his longtime assistant has recently accomplished this feat after having to make a whole lot of calls around to very confused construction companies and assuring them that, no, this is not a joke. I actually want to crush a hard drive with a steamroller. They found some enthusiasts at something called the Great Dorset Steam Fair, which I guess is a collection of people who love and restore steam equipment. And they found an enthusiast that was willing to crush this hard drive with an antique 6-ton steamroller. However, the steamroller didn't actually finish off the hard drive because hard drives are kind of dense. It just cracked the sidewalk underneath the hard drive. And so they ended up having to put the sucker through a concrete crusher to finish the job.
That sounds so convoluted and amazing.
Yeah. So there's some great pictures of this on Terry Pratchett's Twitter, which is @TerryandRob. Steph turned me on to this, and it's his longtime personal assistant, this Rob fellow, who's actually taking care of the Twitter account and to some extent his estate, and made sure that his will was carried out and that his hard drive was crushed by a steamroller so that his unfinished work would never see the light of day. And I kind of wonder, what do you guys think about this? Like, when an author dies, assuming that they didn't leave some kind of a will that said something explicitly like, I want you to crush my work with a steamroller, do you feel like their work continues to belong to them, or do you feel like it's kind of open season?
It's a tough call because I think there's been a lot of neat content that have come out from deceased artists like Kurt Cobain, for example.
Sure.
You got what was the name of that album that came out not too long ago?
Oh, I don't know about an album. I know.
It was like a collection of his, I guess, unreleased works.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Recordings.
I know they've published some of his journals, and I know that there was some Nirvana recordings published on a greatest hits that they had never actually released while he was alive. But
that might be what I'm thinking of then.
But yeah, I mean, in that
yeah.
case, his ex-wife, Courtney Love, is in charge of the estate, to the best of my knowledge.
It's called The Montage of Heck, the Home Recordings.
Oh,
and it
there
was
you go.
released in 2015.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, so it's, I don't know, is the benefit to society, I guess, but with the release of those things greater than the privacy that and it all depends on the person too, right? Like maybe you were just finishing up your, epic novel and you just couldn't, you passed away one day too soon, right?
Well, I mean, like if George R. R. Martin kicks it, there's going to be various people demanding that you publish whatever exists of the Game of Thrones manuscripts, right?
Yep.
But I don't know, man. I have to feel that, like if Terry Pratchett had thought that these novels were done, surely they would have been published. He's a successful author, after all. I'm sure his publisher would have wanted new Terry Pratchett novels, but they weren't finished enough for him to want them to be released, right? So kind of seems like it's disrespectful to not release them because, after all, he's the author. This is his vision, and if his vision isn't correct, then, it's not really for your consumption.
I think that's why having a last will and testament is so crucial for people who may have works that are unpublished, to be able to say this is what should be done in the event of my death. Otherwise, you do run into people with less scruples who capitalize on being able to milk every dollar out of an artist.
Yeah, because I think that in the case of the Harper Lee story with this woman who had taken over the estate from Harper Lee's sister, when this person is no longer family, then it feels really exploitative, versus if you're talking about the Cobain estate again. Courtney Love was his wife and mother of his children, and it feels a little bit less evil for her to be taking advantage of it because she's still direct family, right? Like similar to how Tolkien's, I think, grandkids now run the Tolkien estate, right? And they handle movie licensing and stuff like that. Again, it feels like there's some family connection, some descendant, some person who actually knew this person really well, who's still making those decisions and presumably, hopefully anyway, making decisions that the original author would have agreed with. I don't know. It feels different, I guess, if it's family.
I guess an interesting example of this is the second album by Notorious B.I.G. that he had finished. For all intents and purposes, had finished
Life
recording.
After Death? Is the it was done.
But then there was and then there was debate on whether or not they would actually release it. But I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and don't quote me on this because I probably am, but I believe they actually brought it up with his mother, and she okayed the release.
Well, similarly, before she died, Tupac's mother was the executor of his estate, and approved and denied a whole bunch of uses of his recordings and his likeness and things like that, and. These people, especially years and years, like decades after the death of the original person, are always inevitably accused of capitalizing on somebody, especially Tupac, because so many remixes and things were released posthumously. It's difficult. I don't know. Life After Death's a good album, but I think Ready to Die is a better album. So I'm just going to throw that one out there, too.
Like I said, when you originally asked the question, John, I knew what I was getting into. I think with a novel that has had the opportunity to be polished by the author and every word in it is exactly the way that they wanted, at the end of the day, with Go Set a Watchman, it's a novel inspired by the works of Harper Lee. That's kind of how I feel about it.
Okay, but then so in that case, it really shouldn't have had Harper Lee's name on it, should it?
I don't know how much was her original manuscript and how much was we need to finish this and publish it. So we're going to infer or we're going to pad.
Right. Yeah, that's really difficult. I'm not sure how to handle that. It also feels weird to me that when that's released, there are people making new money off of her stuff. Like, I mean, I guess if you compare it to, say, the Tolkien estate again, right? They're still making money off of the original books and characters and likenesses, which, I mean, depending on your views on copyright is maybe yay or nay, but at least they're not creating new content within the universe and claiming it as having come out of Tolkien's brain. You know what I mean? Like, that seems wrong versus if you're like actively releasing new material after the person died, as opposed to just, guarding and licensing the existing material, like that seems like a distinction that's important too.
Yeah, but I think there's been far more books written about James Bond after Fleming died than he ever wrote.
Yes, and there's been movies and stuff. But, I mean, Fleming's estate, do they still own James Bond, or was that purchased by the Broccoli family? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either.
I don't know who's still involved, because I know the Broccoli family, Barbara Broccoli now, but her father before that were the ones who were producing all the films. I always assumed that they controlled the character, but I'm not certain, to be honest. Huh. So now, here's my question to you. In your last will and testament, which may or may not actually exist, but in your hypothetical last will and testament, what is the ridiculous instruction that you would give to your survivors? I mean, like, the obvious internet joke is, please clear my browser history. I think that's a good one.
For the love of God, don't do the pomp and circumstance of a funeral.
That's interesting.
I'm not interested. Also, I don't want to be buried.
Yeah, the more and more, I actually read
way.
an interesting article about burial the other day and how it's totally not scalable and it's like horrendously toxic and just not a good idea in a lot of ways. And it's also very usually exploitative, not usually, but it has been exploitative of the surviving family members as well. And that cremation is something like 1/10 of the price.
And space.
Yeah, no, space is the big one, right? Because the property that cemeteries are on, which once was not terribly valuable, as cities grow, continues to be more and more valuable. And what do you do with it? It's very difficult.
But how are they going to send you to space if they have to make room for all the tampons?
That's an excellent question. I hope Elon will solve this problem so that I can go to space one day, even if I'm dead when I go there. Sounds great to me.
I think a couple other friends of ours have made the joke that they'd put something in the will about making the other guy build his coffin. And I mean, obviously, yeah, that's not... you can't make someone do something in the will, but there might just be just enough guilt around the time of death that you could con someone into something like that.
Oh, I'll build you a coffin, Jake, if you want me to build you a coffin. I mean, if that's what you're asking, I can handle this. It's doable.
No, I don't really want to be buried either, but I think it would be funny just to make someone, oh, now I have this obligation.
On my death, I wish for you to eat 600 Big Macs in a single sitting.
Yeah, you could make it like really pedantic, like this coffin must be hand sanded with the finest of fine grit.
But like your executors, they have the choice of whether or not to actually listen to your will, don't they? Like your will's not
Nope. They have
binding, is it?
They have to execute your will as it's written.
What if it's ridiculous? Like there
Too
must be
bad.
a limit on that.
I don't know that there is.
Really?
Well, you can't will
Come
something.
on.
You can't write down in your will, your last will and testament, that you want someone else to be killed or
Yeah.
something
Oh,
like that.
yeah,
no, it
like-
has to be like legal and...
Right, but what if it's absurd? Like, what if it's too much money? Like, what if your last will said that you want to be, flown to Mars, and that's just not even feasible?
Well, I assume it has to come out of the
Estate.
the estate assets.
Really? So you
So
could
if the
just
estate can't
come
afford
up with
it,
something
then-
ridiculously expensive to waste your estate money so that nobody gets an inheritance?
So
I
you say
assume the
that things are
creditors
ridiculous,
have to be paid
but
out too.
But what about people who have kids and are like, fuck my kids, I want all my money to go to my cat? Like, the
Those people are
executor's job
assholes.
is
What the
to
hell's your cat
uphold the
supposed to do with
will
money?
unless
That's
it's
ridiculous.
contested.
I mean, I have to assume in those cases, you hear about those cases. First of all, I have to assume most of them are fake. But the other side is I have to assume that, somebody's like, all right, fine, we'll execute on the will. And then the cat mysteriously disappears within a year and that money goes to, the surviving members of that person's family. Like, who the fuck gives money to their cat? That's a dick move.
Well, I've heard colloquially that the way to do it, especially if you have kids that are undeserving of any monetary value, is to give them
children.
to give them a token amount so that they can't claim that they were forgotten. So you go and I give $1 to Billy and Bobby and Betsy, right?
So that
Because
you've
they're all
covered
evil.
your back. Interesting.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Huh. I'd like to know more about the limits of the power of a will, like what you can and can't do and that sort of thing. I think that's actually quite fascinating. I've never looked into it because I'm, still pretty far from death, fingers crossed. So I haven't really considered that I need it.
But when you have assets like a house, you should
Yeah, I
probably
mean,
get
now
on
that
that.
I'm married and have a house, I guess I should probably have some
Well,
paperwork.
by law, it just goes to your spouse anyway.
That's
Unless
what the
you
mortgage
don't
says.
want
Yeah.
it to.
Right.
No, I don't. I don't have any
I'm
choice in the
assuming-
matter. We're co-owners of the house. I don't think I can put in my will that she doesn't get the house. That doesn't
Yes.
make sense.
You could
Depends
put
on how
that
you
she doesn't
own
get
the
your
house.
half.
What would that mean? You can't. What would that force her to sell it? I guess. I don't.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure that the
Or
Or get a
mortgage.
mortgage.
Well, no, that's actually a good question because who's collecting on behalf of the estate at that point?
Yeah, like she would be executing
The
my will,
executor.
presumably.
The executor doesn't just get free money out of it. In fact, I think the executor can take a stipend, right?
Yeah, they can have reasonable expenses. I mean, obviously
Really?
you've got to document them, but yeah, they're allowed to
Oh,
incur
so like
costs
if
for
they
things
have to do
like getting the
research
death
or-
certificate. Yeah.
Right. So this guy who took the hard drive to the Steam Festival and got the hard drive crushed, anything that came up with that, he could take a stipend for that, presumably. Huh.
I mean, I guess it's up to the estate, right?
I suppose so. What a strange business this all is. If you're listening and you know things about wills, I'm sure we're getting them all wrong. So write us an angry email and set us straight. I'm fascinated about this, and I know nothing about it.
Sure, you can find an expensive lawyer to talk to.
Probably.
We still didn't hear what Tyler's weird thing is.
Oh, yeah. Tyler, what are you going to make Anya do when you die? Because, I mean, women live longer than men in general.
I honestly don't care. I'm not going to be here to enjoy it.
I feel the same way. That's part of the reason that I'm into the cremation thing and the no funeral and all that jazz, because I don't give a fuck. I'm dead.
If I had to pick ridiculous things, then one is shooting my ashes into space.
That's a boss thing. That's a good move. I like that.
Or recreating the wake scene from Snatch.
Yeah, good old wake.
Thing is, hopefully by the time you die, all of your loved ones are also really old, and a wake is going to be perhaps beyond their capacity.
If you're interested in telling us what you want to do in your will that's going to drive your loved ones nuts, you can contact us. contact@slightlysauce.com.
Yeah, you could do something instead of like clean up my browser history. I want you to publish my browser history on the front page of the New York Times.
That would be interesting. I assume that they would not print some of that.
I would imagine. I mean, there's also like the ongoing problem, I guess, of what happens now to your internet accounts and things like that. I think even doesn't Facebook, I'm sure the other ones have it, but I'm pretty sure Facebook has like a way to name the person who takes over your Facebook account once you're marked as in memoriam or whatever it is. Like they have an actual setting for this. I'm pretty sure what happens is you send a copy of the death certificate to Facebook, and that they have a department for this, and that triggers your account to go into like an in memoriam status. And at that time, you previously, when you were alive, have designated another Facebook user who then gets full administrative access to your account.
You know, or you could just not have Facebook anymore.
No, like I get it, but
Just
I mean,
accept that
you
it's
can't-
done.
no, but
You
it's
can't even escape it in death.
right. No, but it's just an example of like as we live more and more of our lives with online identities, what happens to those identities after you kick it, right? Like even think about something as simple as like your email account password. Presumably there are some bills that are in your name or some banking that's in your name and not your spouse's, and then they might need access to your email account after you die in order to manage the assets and shit. Like that,
Well, they
you
all
have
have
to
an-
get
yeah,
that stuff in your will too, presumably.
No, I don't. Well, maybe, but legally, I think all of those companies have to provide a means to show death certificate and cancel accounts based on that,
I
right?
would think so.
Well, it's
No
not
one-
necessarily that straightforward. I know I'm not sure if it's Google or if it's another large internet company, but they have made the claim that the account was the property of the dead person, and who are you to be able to get access afterwards? So
I think
there's
that's
been
why
some
Facebook
contention
has
about
this
that.
setting, though, so that you can
But-
deem somebody to take it over. Again, I don't know if any other social network or email account or whatever has that, but
Again, isn't some of this irrelevant? Because as soon as I kick the bucket, my credit card's going to get closed out, and they're not going to get money anyway.
yes and no. I mean, it's your credit card company, but what if your hydro bill was in your name, for example? Like, that gets really inconvenient really fast, I guess.
It's the job of the executor to track down any outstanding accounts and close them with a death
I
certificate.
would think so, yeah. That's all that cleanup stuff sucks. Like, that's
Suckers.
brutal. That's like insult to injury. Not only have you lost a loved one, but now you've got to clean up all their debt and their shit and sell their house. And I know inevitably that's coming. It'll happen to all of us at some point because, life. But Jesus, that's a terrible job.
Well, unfortunately, Kayla and I have to get going this evening, so we'll have to leave the discussion
End the show on a downer, why don't we? Hey, when you die.
What do you want?
All right, well, thanks for joining us on the episode tonight. Like Kayla said earlier, if you want to get in touch with us, contact us. SlightlySauce.com is the way to do it. And, of course, all of our shit's available at SlightlySauce.com. We're also on iTunes and YouTube and Reddit and all kinds of other places. Just Google it. You'll find it. We've been around for a while. Thanks for listening.